Hope you're having a good day today. It is September 30th. We are in the Gospel of Luke today. We're going to be looking in Luke chapter 5. And we're going to be looking at three or four different brokens. The first one, Jesus first calls the disciples. Here he is standing by the lake of Gennesaret. He saw two boats standing by the lake. The fishermen were washing their nets. He gets into the boat and commands that they launch out into the deep. You might notice he gets into the boat. When Simon has this conversation with him, Jesus is in the boat. When they say, "Master, we've toiled all night and caught nothing. Nevertheless, at your word, I will let down the net." Jesus is in the boat. They caught a great number of fish. Their net was breaking. They signaled to their partners in the other boat. Jesus was in the boat. They came and filled both boats, so they began to sink. When Peter saw it, he fell at Jesus' knees. Where was Jesus? He was in the boat. Depart from me, for I am a sinful man. The net that started to break. So that's our first broken. The net that started to break. Man's might. We've been working all night. We haven't caught anything. And the things that are not possible with man are possible with God. Whenever I think of the net that started to break here, I think of after the resurrection when the net did not break. That the Lord has the ability to help us persevere. And as we think about it, I personally think after the resurrection there's a miracle happening there. But here the net started to break. Some things are going to have to be let go, aren't they? As they were going to become fishers of men. But they had more than they could possibly handle. They hadn't caught anything before. But now all of a sudden, they caught a great number of fish, and their net was breaking. They signaled to their partners in the other boat to come, and they start to sink too. And the Lord has that power. That all of a sudden they had caught bubkus. And now all of a sudden they have more than they can handle. And that's the power of the Lord. And so we recognize that. And as Peter says, "Depart from me, for I am a sinful man." The Lord caught them. Let's put it like that. From now on you will catch men, and he caught them. Now we turn from the net that was starting to break to the broken roof. We'll come back to the leper here in a second. The broken roof, as you have the account of the paralytic. And as they're at the house, I believe it's in Capernaum, and there were some individuals who brought a man who was paralyzed, but they couldn't get in. And so they go up on the housetop in verse 19, and they let him down with his bed through the tiling. They had to make a hole in the roof. And so the roof was broken up. And so we think about the determination that we need to have. And the fortitude and the fact that we are going to face obstacles. And these individuals, when they came to see Jesus, and they could not get in the house. And that was their obstacle. But they were not going to take no for an answer. And so we think about our determination and our faithfulness and our perseverance, and we're not going to take no for an answer. Namely, we're going to overcome. We're going to overcome whatever obstacles may be presented before us. So we have the net that started to break, we have the broken roof, and then towards the end of the chapter, we have Jesus speaking about the wineskins. He calls Levi. Levi follows him. And then you have a question about fasting. They said to him, "Why do the disciples of John fast often and make prayers, and likewise those of the Pharisees, but yours eat and drink?" Notice the scribes and the Pharisees are complaining. First they complain about who he's eating and drinking with, and then they just complain that he's eating and drinking, period. He said to them, "Can you make the friends of the bridegroom fast while the bridegroom is with them? But the days will come when the bridegroom will be taken away from them, then they will fast in those days." Then he spoke a parable to them. No one puts a piece from a new garment on an old one, otherwise the new makes a tear, and also the piece that was taken out of the new does not match the old. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins, or else the new wine will burst the wineskins and be spilled, and the wineskins will be ruined. But new wine must be put into new wineskins, and both are preserved. No one, having drunk old wine, immediately desires new, for he says the old is better. All right, there's some question about what this parable is talking about. And I think there may be different ways of looking at it. But one thing is, the difference, the comparison, or the question is, why do the disciples of John fast often? And likewise those of the Pharisees, but yours don't. So that's the comparison. Those who fasted often and those who didn't. That's the comparison. But anyway, you have the parable of the wineskins. And let's make this point. Because I think what the Lord is talking about is dispensations. And that's somewhat of a churchy word, but systems. Let's perhaps think about it that way. And between new and old. Now the question is the old here. Is John the Baptist counted in the old? And I would suggest he is. There were, to look at the parable, there were similarities, right? The new garment and the old one. There may be similarities there, but at the same time they are incompatible in a sense. You don't put a piece from a new garment on an old one. So yes, there are similarities, but they're incompatible. Think about the idea of reforming. That Jesus did not come to reform Judaism. He came to fulfill the law, and it was fulfilled. He was not just slapping a new piece on an old one, and then everything would be... That's not what this is. It's not just reformed Old Testament. But John the Baptist, did John the Baptist come to reform? And I think that may be closer. I think I may be closer to saying that yes, as he came to turn the hearts of the fathers back to the children, and he was making the way. That I think with John the Baptist, you could more accurately say that yes, he was more of a reformer, but Jesus came to fulfill. I may be off base with that. You may just think about the parable, and I think one thing we can say is, especially that last part, no one having drunk old wine immediately desires new, for he says the old is better. I think without a doubt, Jesus came to usher in the new. And that last point, I think, is very simple. Usually people don't like the new. They think, oh, well, the old way is better. Well, what's the old way? Well, the old way is how the Pharisees do it. The old way may even be, well, John, the disciples of John, they fast. They fast and make prayers just like the Pharisees do, at least outwardly. But yours are doing something different. Yours are doing something new. Your disciples, Jesus, are doing something new. He doesn't say, by the way, that there's not going to come a time for fasting. He does make that point. But at the same time, just this concept of this transition. It's like, no, the old is going to be fulfilled. The old is going to be fulfilled. But people will desire. No one immediately desires the new. They're more comfortable with the old. They say the old is better. And so you have this parable about the wineskins and the danger of them being broken, and the broken roof, and the net that started to break. And then as we close out today, you might just consider the leper. The man who was full of leprosy. You know, I never noticed that before, that he was full of leprosy. And that when he saw Jesus, he fell on his face. You probably know what leprosy was like. You've probably heard it described. The man was broken, and the Lord made him whole. That whether we're talking about the nets that were nearly breaking, or we're talking about the roof that was broken, or we're talking about the wineskins that could have broken, we need to think about we ourselves, and that without Jesus we are broken. And we come to Him, and He makes us whole. Appreciate you. Hope this brief study's been beneficial for you. Hope you join us for our next look into God's Word.